What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Funcast, episode 23. Our guest today is James Mann from Spicebush Woodcraft. He's an expert forager of mushrooms, plants, a naturalist, as well as a homesteader, and many other things that the you know community is into. I'd say, right? Thanks for
Oh
coming on the
yeah.
cast today, bro.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
So, Uncle Fungus, Drew Zimmerman sent me your way. And, he's just like a good, great friend of mine, as well as just a wealth of knowledge. And I just asked recently, as far as like, who to do, like, who does my, I guess following want to see on the podcast, and your name came up. So, reached out, and it's a super honor for you to like come on the cast, and thanks for taking time out pretty much like within the last like 24 hours. It was within the snap of a finger.
Hey, no problem, man. This is about the end of my kind of relaxed season before my foraging classes start. I can just give myself a little intro too. My name is James Mann, the owner of Spicebush Woodcraft and Foraging. It's my mission to get people back on the landscape, humans back on the landscape in a positive way. So I achieve this through foraging classes and educational content online. I was a chef for many years in Columbus in fine dining, and I even worked at a restaurant in northern Sweden, which is a 2 Michelin star restaurant that really focused on foraging and growing all the food for the restaurant. So I have a lot of experience. I worked on a mushroom farm for 40 years after I was a chef, and now I live on a 1 acre homestead in South Columbus with my girlfriend, 2 dogs, 6 chickens, 6 ducks, and we just do a lot of stuff. Apart from my classes, I'm an avid gardener. We garden on a 1/4 acre. We got a 3/4 acre riparian area in which we're restewarding and kind of renaturalizing. So yeah, I do a lot of
Dude,
workshops
I
as well.
see.
But yeah, so I didn't get
Speaking of like your
long-winded.
homestead.
So is that
Oh no, dude, it's all right. I was going to say, like, speaking of your homestead, I wanted to talk to you about the geothermal underground, like awesome. I guess what you could call it, a nursery,
so
like,
yeah, it's
uh,
what it's called. I don't know if this is a technical term, but it's called a wallapini. At least it's in the design of a wallapini, which is basically like a pit house or a pit that we dug 4 foot down into the ground under the frost line, and then we built a greenhouse over top of it. So the idea of it is that in the wintertime when the sun is low, the sun is coming in at a specific angle, and our greenhouse is capturing all of that heat and it's absorbing the heat. Because a traditional greenhouse that's built at ground level, it may get really warm in the sun in the daytime when the sun is shining, but as soon as the sun goes down, all of the heat is just sucked out of the greenhouse. So one day I was on YouTube and I was watching this video, and it was called Greenhouse in the Snow, and it was in Nebraska. And this guy had oranges and lemons and limes in the ground in Nebraska in this pit house he made, which actually operated on full geothermal. So he had these tubes underground that would move air, and that wasn't really applicable to our property. So we started by hand digging a 4 foot pit, and now, I mean, it's evolved into this winter was the first winter where I had all of our house plants and our lemons and limes outdoors all year long. Even when it was negative 11 degrees outside for a week straight, they were out there. And this winter, I actually built something called a rocket powered thermal mass. So it's a rocket stove, which is a like a J-shaped stove, similar to what would be called a Dakota fire hole, and so the shape of the stove actually pulls air through it at a very high rate. And basically, it's just like if you blew air onto a fire, it gets hotter. And so that's what this does naturally. And then
yeah,
those pipes are run through a huge bench of cob, which is just sand, clay, and straw. And it absorbs all of that heat before leaving the greenhouse. And so, with the addition of that, the greenhouse stays above freezing and really about 40 to 50 degrees, even in the sub-zero temperatures in Ohio. So it's been pretty
Now,
amazing.
is that something that you have to have? Sorry to interrupt you. My bad.
No, you're good.
Is that something that you're using like wood, like it's like a wood burn, like wood fueled way of like
It
heating that, or is that like a like a gas setup?
it is wood powered. I use fuel pellets and or firewood that I cut myself. But the idea of it is that if you had a wood burning stove in there, so to speak, you would have to run it 24/7 in order to reap the benefits of the heat. Because in reality, most of the heat from a wood burning stove goes out of your chimney. You benefit from the radiant heat that's coming out, but as soon as that stove is off, all the heat is gone. So the difference with this is
Yeah.
that the heat is getting absorbed into the basically the earth, and so the bench heats up and is about 60, 70, 80, sometimes 100 degrees. The bench itself and that rock and that cob holds the heat for much longer. So I can run the stove for maybe 6 to 8 hours, and then I can reap the benefits of that heat for the next day. So that's the main reason I
Really?
chose.
Wow. It's that the insulation's that significant when it comes to holding the heat, even when it's
It
just like the
is.
mud and straw.
It is. It is. And, a lot of people do this, in the off-grid community. And, while I'm not necessarily trying to be off-grid, I don't believe any of us can ever really be off-grid because even these guys that are off-grid have to use things from the grid to make the things off the grid. So, um, I really, with my content and my message, I really try to steer away from the survivalist mindset, the prepper mindset, and also like the let's not touch nature, let's just admire it from afar type of thing. So I'm kind of trying to be more in the middle and say like, hey, we can do this stuff, we can forage and we can garden and we can do all this stuff without some kind of left or right agenda. We can do this stuff because we're humans and that's what we're supposed to be doing. It doesn't have to be. I'm tired of the messages of like you have to do this stuff because of the solar flares and the Mexicans coming over the border or whatever. And
Interesting.
the other side of the equation is like if you touch plants, then you're destroying the ecosystem, and like we can't actually exist off these plants because all humans are
Well,
parasites.
I feel like that's kind of funny that you brought that up because I haven't even really even thought about either one of those sides. I mean, for the most part, I just see it as a way of just using nature as it, naturally is. And whether I knock a berry off a tree or and eat it and shit it out, and a bear knocks a berry off a tree and eats it and shits it out, like what makes that any different? You know what I mean? And naturally it's gonna happen anyway. So as far as that's concerned, I think as long as you're not like, over farming or, abusing the land, it's obviously there to be used, right?
Oh yeah, and it's you have the same mentality I have, but the truth is a lot of people don't have that mentality. They don't. A lot of people don't understand the way nature even works. A lot of people walk into the forest and to see a chaos of just this green. And I really feel that when we learn more and look deeper into nature, learn about the plants, learn who they are, learn about these communities and this food web and how everything interacts, then we really start to see our place in it. Because I feel like we've really lost our place in nature. We're trying to be outside of it, and that's caused a lot of damage because no one really understands what our role is in nature. We treat ourselves like we're aliens on the landscape, and that all we can either do is destroy, and we don't know how to do it. I've heard a lot of people say that humans are parasites, and I think that some have a parasitic mindset, but indigenous peoples lived on this land and civilizations of people for untold history. I mean, Ohio has a great indigenous history with mound building cultures like the Hopewell and the Shawnee, and you know, it's always been maddening to me to try and think that we can't live off these renewable resources. Non-timber forest products, which is the main things I deal in. with people like, plants and mushrooms and things. Um, they are renewable resources, but with all renewable resources, we have to be mindful and we have to be intentional about the way we harvest them. And I've found personally that the more that I harvest food from the landscape, the more that I actually care about the landscape. And that when something happens, like trash or invasive species, I actually do something about it.
That's what
Versus,
I was. So that's what I was going to bring up. It's funny. Sorry to interrupt. As far as invasive species go, the more realistically, a little bit about me. Pretty much got into growing things through mycology, and then after like I learned how to grow mushrooms, that's when I kind of got into growing like other plants, other like cacti, and then moved into like foraging and trying to learn about like just the natural plants that grow in my area, medicinal, edible, non-edible, um, there's also with that also came a hate for invasive species
yeah.
of plants, and it's just like it's like it is not like, oh, it's a plant, and it's like, no, fuck that plant, it's not supposed to be there, and like that plant is like destroying like arguably 10 more plants that would be, if more beautiful, or who cares if anything about beauty, whereas like it would just be better for the environment, pollination, everything, you know what I mean? It's a whole butterfly effect of like invasive species are not cool, and you should like definitely destroy them if you can.
Oh, for sure. And had your same mentality of like fuck them, but I've kind of tried to come more toward the middle just because I want to be able to get this message to more people, and I feel like at the beginning taking that stance turns people off before I can even explain to them why I feel this way. So what I try and get across to people is that, hey,
Oh,
these plants are here, and it's going to be really hard for us to eradicate them. But what we can do is be mindful of the impacts they have on the environment. And we can also know that, like, hey, they are not supposed to be here. They did not evolve with our species of plants and animals for the hundreds of thousands of years that the other plants have. And so there's all these different things, like, in the spring, I often talk about honeysuckle because, right now, honeysuckle has its leaves. It's already got its leaves, and it's shading out the floor underneath of it. Versus its native counterpart, Spicebush, which is what my business is named from, which is like our native shrub and our native allspice. It's just now flowering. So just that comparison right there for people is an eye opener because it's like I try to explain it like it's like someone comes into your house and they maybe they crash on your couch
so
for a while,
when
but
you
then
say the honeysuckle, is honeysuckle, sorry, there's like seems to be just a slight lag, so I just might have to just kind of like um, ask the question. But when you say honeysuckle, is that an invasive species of a plant, like compared to like the spice bush, or so?
yeah.
You gotta when you talk to me, you come at me as if I'm a total newbie for the most part, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I kind of I'm used to talking to people in this area, so talking to someone you probably don't have that down in Florida. But honeysuckle is from Asia, and it was planted for like ornamental purposes, which is what most invasives are planted as. And it's when we talk about plants from Asia, they come. A lot of people don't know that a lot of Asia is temperate, just like our climate, and so they're very well adapted to this climate. And they're also they are opportunist species. So their whole role in the environment is to come into disturbed areas and cover them up. But the main thing is that they don't have any checks and balances here. So nothing really eats them, nothing really prunes them. Our deer, our white-tailed deer here, they prefer native species because they have evolved to eat native species. So they eat all of our native species, and then the honeysuckle takes over and nothing eats it. So even the birds, there's been studies now that have shown that cardinals are starting to prefer the berries because it makes their plumage more red. But the problem with that is now they're spreading the seeds even more because the seeds and the berries
Oh,
of the honeysuckle they don't have the nutrition that our native berries do because they last all winter long. But we have birds here that are non-migratory, like robins and cardinals. They need seeds and berries that are full of fat and carbohydrates to get them through the winter so they don't freeze to death. And by only having honeysuckle instead of natives like dogwood or coralberry or these things that these berries that persist
They're
all
not
winter
getting
long,
enough nutritional value.
yeah, it's like a fruit gusher compared to like eating a piece of beef jerky. You know what I mean? It's like those two things. Like if you just ate gushers
Yeah.
all winter long, like you're not gonna make it that long. But if you ate jerky all winter long, maybe you'd have a better chance. So for me, just like you said,
So
every
it's a
species
more of a problem even for like native species of animals as well at that point.
it is because we exist in a food web, right? It's not a food chain like we've been told, where it's like the sun makes the grass grow, and then the cricket eats the grass, and the thing eats the thing. It's not this like stair stepping effect. It's more of like this huge mandala or a dream catcher, if you will. And there's so many nodes in the dream catcher where things collide and contrast, and everything in nature basically is working off of each other. You know, these things have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, humans included. And humans are an
Yeah, like a
amazing
symbiotic relationship.
symbiotic relationship, just like with mushrooms, like chanterelles with the mycorrhizal relationships with tree roots. And, you know, I mean, even humans are amazing because while we don't have claws or fur or anything like that, we are like, what could we even say? We are like, what's that woman from X-Men? Rogue, who can take other powers and can use them for herself. So
Oh
we're not
yeah,
beavers. We're not beavers, but
leeching.
we
You
can
know.
slow water down by making dams. We're not deer. We can't prune trees with our teeth, but we can go with cutters and cut them off. So humans have all these different adaptable
We're
superpowers
like
because
Batman.
we are. We have a utility belt, and the problem is that instead of taking this role of like we are on the same par with nature, we're like no, we are above nature, and we're going to dominate it. And you know that's where I feel like a lot of the problems have come into play. And you know, my grandpa was a forager, and back in his day, there was market hunting was huge. And this is where we get into the over harvesting of you know mushrooms and plants and ginseng and all this stuff. Um, because there was a market for it. So we have all these rules and regulations which kind of prevent us from accessing the landscape. And I feel like this is we're going the wrong way. You know, we
It's
should have
crazy how it got to the
instead of
point where like ginseng has died now. And
ginseng
you
still
know,
exists. I see it every now and again in the forest, but the problem is it used
oh,
to
I mean
cover the
like died
forest
as
floor.
far as like the color.
What
I
was that? You're
thought for
lagging out
like
on me a little
something
bit.
like sorry, bud. I thought it was like I watching like a TV show, and it was like either they dye it or like mark the ginseng because it's such a valuable crop that it's like uh it's different than like natural ginseng. I could just be
No, you're pretty much correct there. You know, a lot of our ginseng it gets poached and it gets shipped to China because in their traditional Chinese medicine, they actually prefer the American ginseng to the Asian ginseng because Asian ginseng has more of like a yang type energy, which is like very high, and you know that's why it's in energy drinks. But the American ginseng has a very yin energy, so it's very relaxing and it's very purifying. And they love our ginseng
ah
and so that's where all the ginseng goes because you know a dry pound of ginseng could go for anywhere from $1,000 to 800 to 1,200, depending on the market value. And so for
what
rural
really?
people,
Jeez
you know,
Louise.
and you know the thing is, I don't want to necessarily poaching is bad and all this stuff, but you know, in rural Appalachia, people need ways to make money, and a lot of people went to the
Yeah,
hills to
of
get
course.
ginseng because it's worth its weight in gold. So they just didn't know any better. So I don't want to say that like people that did this were bad. They just didn't know any better, and that's why I do what I do because I want to teach people how to do it in a better way and teach them that hey, instead of selling this ginseng, we could use it for ourselves, and we could, you know, just go out and get it instead of having to buy it from some pharmacy or something like that. You know, same with Golden Seal and other things.
Well, bro, you've already like changed, my kind of mindset already, even on invasive species, right? Where you just, you, it's cool how you're not telling people that it's like, uh, yeah, it's like, all right, well, fuck the plant, right? It's like, all right, kind of, but also understand that it's not going anywhere, and this is what we need to do to move forward, and this is why it's not good for our current habitat and environment.
Yeah, I mean,
So
really,
that's like, at
it's
least
like,
from what I've gotten, and I wanted to ask you actually about something, and I thought that this was a really cool project that you and your girlfriend are doing. You're going for the first half of 2025, eating all of the things that you've grown or like harvested.
yeah. So I was
So you want
inspired
to
by
maybe
another
talk a little
Instagram
bit
account.
more about that?
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, so I was inspired by another Instagram account, and they're in Pittsburgh, and they did this kind of challenge, and so I've been honing my skills for many years with gardening and foraging, and so I was like, you know what, this is the year I'm going to try it. So what we're going to do is spend the whole year preparing by foraging, growing, and hunting and fishing, and besides like things like salt or like maybe cooking oil, we'll see what we can gather throughout the year, but 99.8% of what we consume in the first 6 months of 2025 is going to be things that we've gotten from our garden, from the landscape. Um, and, because we're really avid gardeners and we preserve a lot of stuff. After this, I'm going to be making some like ramp compound butter, ramp salt, um, to kind of preserve the harvest that I've been doing for this spring. So I really think that this gets you in the mindset of like, number one, how much do we consume? Number two, how much do we need to consume? And number three, how much work does it actually take to get everything that you need from the landscape? Because it is a lot of work, but at the end of the day, the more you do it, the more you can incorporate it into your lifestyle, and it doesn't become as much work as it used to be. So every year you can kind of add new things to your repertoire. Like you said, you start out growing mushrooms, kind of the same way. Mushrooms are kind of a gateway drug into nature almost. It's like,
For sure. It's definitely a gateway drug into nature. I wouldn't be interested, honestly, have really been that much interested in like the natural, plants and stuff around if I didn't really get into like nature to look for mushrooms. Um, and, I guess with that being said, I was like, is this something that's always been a part of your life? Or did you get into it, later in life?
yeah, so like I said, I grew up in Southern Ohio. My grandpa was he was kind of an eccentric. He was a forager and a rock hound. And, when he died, I inherited marbles and rocks and ginseng roots. So that kind of tells you what he was all about. Um, but when I was growing up in Southern Ohio, about the time I graduated high school, the opioid epidemic was really bad. And so I just wanted to get out. I wanted to get away from that kind of stuff. And so I went to OU to be an engineer, a mechanical engineer. And, I grew up poor. So 4-year university
Nice.
was not actually afford. So I saw the writing on the wall, and I was like, I love building stuff, I love engineering, but I cannot afford this, and I do not want to have this huge bill over my head when I get out of here. So I dropped out, and then I've always loved cooking, so I moved to Columbus, and I started culinary school. I worked my way up from a dishwasher all the way to a chef, an executive chef, within a couple of years, 3 years. I worked at many fine dining restaurants around Columbus, and then eventually I, was lucky enough to be able to be a stage or an intern at a restaurant in northern Sweden. Had 2 Michelin stars, and they were in like, I mean, I went there in December, which was a terrible choice because it was so cold. It was like negative 25 every day. Frost would just form on your face and your eyelashes when you
Oh,
walked outside.
no.
But they foraged, grew, and preserved everything for the restaurant. They served 24 people a night, and it wasn't really for me. There was something about rich people paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for things that can just be gathered on the landscape just did not sit right with me. And this it kind of led me toward what I'm doing now because I present this to normal everyday people and I present it in a way that is normal and everyday because foraging isn't a trend for me. Foraging isn't a vibe or anything like that. Foraging is a lifestyle that we can live. And I want to present it in that way because I'm a normal dude. I'm not a prepper. I'm not a survivalist. I'm not like, you know, Donnie Dust out there,
Yeah.
foot napping and stuff, which he's amazing and stuff, but like I feel like they make it seem a little bit unattainable. Like this is something that you can only do if you pack up and move to Alaska. And in Appalachia, where we are right now, we live in one of the most biodiverse places in America. And so you can just be a normal everyday person and incorporate this stuff into your lifestyle, diversify your diet, and be able to live
Well,
off
you
of
know,
it.
I want to say I saw like even in the video that you posted, you know, you were talking about how there was urban foraging and the fact that you even had to post a video about urban foraging and how that's not something that you necessarily do, but technically could be done. It's like that's how, you know, mushrooms will grow and they will grow where they want to grow, whether it's off of like, you know, like a half a like cheeseburger in like a trash can or a rotten log.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and with that video too, I was kind of talking about how I don't forage certain things from. I'm trying to give people a more well-rounded view, right? Instead of being like, you need to listen to me, I'm your guru or whatever about foraging. It's more about like, hey, like let's use common sense. I want to teach you about this.
Recommendation.
Yeah, it's a recommendation on saying, hey, maybe not harvest plants and mushrooms growing from the ground in a city park that's got a heroin needle beside it. But if you do find some nuts or some fruits that are growing up off the ground, I harvest service berries in the Bob Evans parking lot every year. And, people ask me, what are you doing? And I'm saying I'm harvesting berries that taste like blueberries. And barely anybody takes me up on that offer. But you know what? Who does take me up on the offers though? People that have immigrated from other countries, because in other countries, especially Europe, these things are still like done. Foraging is still done by people and seen as normal. When in America, we seem to have lost that normality, and it seems like if food doesn't come out of the grocery store, then it's not edible for some reason. And so I'm trying to change people's mind about that and
Dude,
say
it's
that
so funny.
oh yeah, for sure. It's hilarious sometimes. I'll even eat it right in front of them, and they'll be like, "Nah, I'm good. I don't believe you." You know. So it is what it is. It's more for me at the end of the day. But I want to get people out there, and I want to get people more engaged in this stuff because in Ohio, a lot of our outdoor time is spent recreationally, like boating or hiking or walking your dog out in the woods or running in the woods. And the parks reflect that. The parks really only care about stuff that makes them money, like camping and things like that. But there's not a whole lot of focus on ecology. There's not a whole lot of focus on foraging. In fact, the rules on foraging are very gray area, very not illegal, but not necessarily spelled out as being legal. And Ohio is a very weird state for that because,
Yeah.
there are a lot of things. I mean, there's so much to eat out there, man. I have pulled hundreds of pounds of food out of the woods in 1 year, from mushrooms to nuts like hickory nuts and black walnuts to pawpaws to persimmons to, I mean, these things. Here's why I love wild food. I don't have to do anything besides go and gather. You know how hard it is to be a gardener? You have to start your seeds. You have to grow your seedlings. You have to prepare
It's
your
so
soil,
hard
to
to be a
feed the
gardener.
soil.
People don't
And
even
you know what?
understand what it's like.
And why do and it's good to do that. But why focus all your energy on that when there's food that just nature grows for free? I can walk around and spot a persimmon tree and gather 20 pounds of fruit for free that I didn't have to grow. There's a lot of talk about food forests nowadays. And I try to stay away from that word food forest because I think that people make it their personality, and they want to plant all these trees in a small place and be like, I have all this food now, and it's like, no, you don't, because food from trees takes 40 to 50 years to start actually producing for you. So it's great that you're planting trees, but I guarantee in 10 years, a lot of these food forests are going to end up choking themselves out because people don't understand how to maintain a food forest because it's a lot of work. They act like it's set it and forget it when it's absolutely not that. It needs maintained by human presence, just
I
like
feel like
everything else.
it's like way more than that. I think my friend, you know, I don't know, what I like to say, he had a food forest, but he was doing like different plants, like seasons. Like he was doing his greens, and then after his greens, he would replant a bunch of other things, and he had a bunch of different fruit trees and all this stuff. And focusing on the soil, making sure, like, bragging about the mycelium in his soil. Like he'd be like, "Bro, come check this out," and he like, and it's like you got some, and he's like, "You see
Oh yeah.
that?" He's like, "That's that good, good." I'm like, "Dude, you're such a badass."
And again, I'm not knocking this. Like I do love permaculture, and half my garden is actually devoted to permaculture principles. But I guess for me, it's about trying to keep this stuff away from the trendy stuff. I want to get more into the middle of this stuff and say like, this doesn't have to be some trendy thing that you do for 2
Oh, but
years and
yeah,
give up
when I
on.
say, like, I feel like he's more like, sorry to interrupt, more like
You
us, where like he was kind of like, just using it just to like grow plants and food on his land, to the point where like he was like taking bones and like dissolving it and like creating his own, like, nutrients and stuff that he can like give back. You got like chickens and stuff like that, do the whole shebang. Um, but it's never like, yeah, I think for the most part, myself and like anybody that I really speak to, we're all just doing the damn thing just to do it. It's like super cool to be able to like use, go out into nature. First off, if you're going to go into nature and have like a nature hike or a walk, it's like always better to know about what plants you're going to be around, because you never know, right?
For
Because I
sure.
tell you what, like every time I go on a nature walk and I happen to find some chanterelles, you already know I'm having a ribeye for dinner that night.
Oh yeah. Well, you make a great point because it makes food special. It makes these times and these seasons special. Because the more I get into this, the more I realize that for every season, there's a reason. You know what I mean? Like I look forward to each season and sometimes each week of the season, like chanterelle season and chicken of the woods and pawpaws, and I really feel like it almost gives you a more of a purpose. You're like, I can't wait until March where brams start to pop up. I can't wait for these times to get out in the woods, to plant my seeds, to reap the benefits of what's going on, and you really feel connected with the landscape, and you really feel connected with the world around you in a different way. It's amazing. I love it. And the sparkle in people's eyes when I point something out to them they've never seen before, and I'm like, that is delicious and edible. And people just turn into kids, and I turn into a kid all the time. I've been doing this for years, and every year I find a new plant I've
Living
never seen before.
vicariously through them.
Yeah,
And dude, I was like, I wanted to say the fact that like, you seem to be extremely knowledgeable about your surrounding areas as far as the plants and stuff like that. And I think that's really cool, because now you could like, going on to the foraging aspect of that, you have the ability to go find whatever that is that you need, and then you could just harvest that via nature and not have to now use whatever space you have allocated to, like, farming on your land to your native species. So now you can like use your land to grow things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to have via foraging, and then just go also and forage, all of the native plants. So it's like kind of cool how you could like really efficiently get your fruits and veggies for the 2025, like marathon or
for sure, man. And don't get me wrong, it is a lot of work, and I spend a lot of time out in the woods and putting a lot of miles and doing processing and all this stuff. So it is a lot of work, but it's
absolutely. I'm
amazing
not saying it
when
wasn't.
you
I
can
think it's very impressive.
when you can take away the growing aspect, at least you can take away one part of the equation and make your life a little bit easier. And at the end of the day, I think it's an integration. It's diversifying our diets so that we're not reliant on one source for our food, right? Even if you were just a gardener, right? But we have a drought one year. Our native plants are more resilient to those changes than your broccoli and your cauliflower, right? We have a hard time keeping these things alive half the time. So, I believe in diversity of diet, and I believe
My
in
broccoli died.
diversified. Yeah, yeah, I have a lot of trouble with broccoli and cauliflower, believe it or not. But and you live in Florida too, so you guys have iguanas that are invasive that you can just kill as many as you want and eat them. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, dude. We there's like these little orange lizards here. So there's iguanas are more like kind of down south, maybe West Palm, Miami area. But we recently got these lizards. They're like they have orange heads, and they're like big ass. Sometimes I almost think I see like bearded dragons, but I don't
yeah,
even know what the orange lizard is. But they eat like all the other things. They're even eating like the newt lizards, which are technically invasive to like the natural gecko.
oh yeah, invasive on invasive. Up here we have the tree of heaven, and then we have another invasive species called spotted lanternfly. And it's funny because they're both invasive, and
Oh,
the lanternfly is killing the host tree is the tree of heaven, so it's killing another invasive species. So it's interesting to see how nature kind of plays out. But yeah, there's just so much in the landscape that can be harvested and eaten. And, the main question I get is, well, if everybody did this, then there would be no food out there. And that's partially true. But I believe that the more people know about these things, the more we can protect and expand these places. If people have a vested interest in these natural landscapes because they get their food from there, maybe they will start advocating locally more for instead of that subdivision being built, maybe we're going to say, you know what, we want to keep that place the way it is because that's where I get my chanterelles and my ramps. And so I really want to get people more involved locally in these things because I feel like, sometimes it can feel a little bit powerless because every time you turn around, there's a new fucking subdevelopment going up where they destroy, 2 square
I like
miles
where
of forest in order to plant fucking Bradford pear and
because
like other
you
invasive species in their place.
yeah, dude, you can't eventually you can't fucking. But if you keep using land to make apartment complexes and subdevelopments and malls, there's not going to be land that's growing the species of plants that are mycorrhizal with fucking nature and like the just earth, right? It's like
Oh
at
yeah.
that point ramps, you know, morels, chanterelles, truffles, for the most part well, I guess now they're like cultivating morels, but I mean realistically to like, it, what like that's like the Danish Morel project. That's one team of people.
Right. And again,
In it.
cultivation is great and it's a good diversity, but I don't really want to live in a world where the only food I can only get ramps from somebody that cultivated them and are selling them back to me when I used to be able to go out and get them for free. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
I just feel like at the end of the day, a lot of people put a lot of negative light on foragers and people that harvest from the landscape to say over harvesting, destroying the landscape, blah blah blah. But in reality, the blame lies upon these massive, like these massive conglomerates that are just
Well, bro,
bulldozing the
it's almost
land.
like, right, it's like the world puts blame on like what when the world puts blame on something, they put the blame with like the most extreme thing of that nature, right? So 100% there are absolutely people out there over harvesting and destroying the natural like just flow of things through that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is. uh
Oh, for sure. I mean, and there's
but
probably a
that's
small.
also
There's
something that
always.
people can't like handle, I guess.
Oh yeah, here's the thing, man. It's like the same thing with like plastic and pollution and all that stuff. It's like I feel like a lot of the blame gets put onto us, and we need to recycle and do all this stuff, and that's all well and good. Meanwhile, Dow Chemical is dumping in C8 into the river at gallons per minute, and turning everybody with 4 fingers and 8 toes. You know what I mean? It's like I think that we have responsibility individually as humans to be accountable for our landscapes and things. But I just want to get more away from putting the blame on us and putting the blame where it really belongs, which are on these, A guy with a shovel and a bucket can do a lot of damage to a ramp patch, but a bulldozer can do a lot of more damage and irreparable damage that will not recover when they bulldoze a whole area and they turn it into a fucking, another Home Depot that we don't need. Why do we have 13 Home Depots in a 5 square mile radius?
Yeah, right. There's usually if there's you see one Home Depot right next door is a fucking Lowe's.
Yeah, it's like it's madness, man. It's like you can feel powerless about it, but what I hope to do is not dwell in that doom and gloom, but more empower people, because there's more of us than there are people that work at Home Depot and own Home Depot, and if more people start to recognize the landscapes and the value that these landscapes have, the intrinsic value, not the value of the timber, not the value of the ramps, not the value of the mushrooms, but the value intrinsically to our
Not the
health,
value of the land itself.
the value
Like
of the land
like
itself, man.
when I say that, like not the monetary value that somebody happened to put on. I think owning land is kind of a funny concept, and we all have to do it, right? But it's like so. At one point, there was a person who out there who was like, "I want this,"
Yeah,
and
I mean,
then that was their land. And then,
I mean, in Sweden they had something called everyman's rights, and it was pretty cool actually because in Sweden you can go onto and hunt and fish and forage public and private land as long as you're a good steward of the land. And so yeah, private property ownership's a little bit of a double-edged sword. We own an acre of land in the city, and we have a lot of problem with people trespassing on our land, which if they were just walking through, it wouldn't be much of an issue. But we got, you give people an inch, they take a mile. Next thing you know, they're bringing an ATV down your creek
yeah,
that you're trying to restore. Next thing you know, they're dumping trash here. So it's like I do see the benefits and the negatives of land ownership and all that kind of stuff. And I think again, teaching people why we should care about this is very important. I think education comes first. We can't have change if people aren't educated, because why should you care? Why should you care if you don't know anything about nature? People say they love nature, but in
exactly.
reality, I think they love the idea of nature. And if you really love nature, you start, like you, right? Like you found those chanterelles, and I bet you're looking forward to it this year, aren't you? You're looking forward to going out there and finding those
Dude, I was
chanterelles.
actually thinking about going like today because our season's kind of weird in Florida. We have a longer season down here, and it's like, the cold temperatures are kind of starting to like really go away. It's like it's during the day it's nice and hot and muggy, and it kind of been kind of rainy, so it's I'm feeling the mushroom vibes. Usually if I see mushrooms growing in my front yard is a good like that's my indicator of like I'm going to go out to my spots.
That's awesome, man. I envy you right now because I love chanterelle season and ours is still many months away. It feels like, but we don't. Our season is typically not until July, um, which is something that I wait for patiently every single year. And same with morel season. That we're about to enter morel season. For me, morels are a little bit tricky because I just get obsessed, and so I spend a lot of time walking out in the woods and not seeing anything. And it's always lovely when you find a big patch of morels, but it doesn't often happen.
Are you speaking of the morels? The morel, what should we call it? Are you going to the morel? What's the foray? I think it is, and uh, I guess Uncle Fungus is going, or I think
Yeah,
hosting.
I'll be there. I don't know if I'll necessarily be a part of the morale foray. I think they're doing that as a separate event, but I'm definitely going to be there leading foray. And I'm also a big part of the Ohio Mushroom Festival, so we're going to have our own morale foray
Okay,
the next weekend in Southern Ohio. That's going to be really fun. A lot of experts going to be there, and I'll be leading the foray there as well. And then in the fall, we have the big Ohio Mushroom Festivals in the fall. We had our first one last year, and it was awesome. Cannot wait for this one too. So it's amazing to see how many people are starting to. A lot of people are our age. I don't know how old you are. I'm 30 years old. But a lot of people our age are
I'm
really
also 30
starting to
years
get into
old.
this. Nice. So yeah, a lot of people our age are really starting to get into this type of stuff, which is awesome because we are the people that are going to teach the next generation how to do this stuff. We're going to teach the next generation things that our parents never taught us because they didn't know because their grandparents just wanted them to move to the city and get a good job and not have to toil all day. But I think by using
Yep.
the benefits of modern technology and with some ancient wisdom, we can kind of make a good middle ground here for how to live a happy life that's not full of hard labor and also be able to reap renewable resources and the benefits from the landscapes. So,
Dude, I love it. I love that whole, pretty much just life, like just the idea, right? The fact that like the perfect balance between understanding that like, all right, capitalism is a thing and it's never not going to be a thing, at least, you know, as far as I'm concerned. And you're gonna have to like go to the grocery store at some point. You're gonna have to use Amazon at some point. It's not possible to be like, if you're like a completely off the grid, well, like it's kind of like a well done, at least for me, because I don't know if I'd be able to like do it. But also understanding that like you can enjoy being, um, sustainable in certain aspects, and it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't have to be for any reason other than like because you want to fucking grow your garlic for a year, and then have
for
like
sure.
3 years worth of garlic storage just hanging out.
Yeah, man, totally agree. I feel like, I've been watching a lot of Life Below Zero recently, which is like those guys in Alaska and live off the land. And that doesn't
Hmm.
really appeal to me. I don't. Alaska does not really appeal to me. I like deciduous forests. I like that we have long growing seasons. I don't really care for hard winter. And
Yeah,
so
dude, I watched like Alone, few
yeah,
couple seasons of that,
and it's
and
funny
it's
how
like
all
no
this stuff.
way, these
Whenever we watch survival stuff,
like,
right, it's always like alone and always these like single things. When in reality, no one ever survived ever on this planet all alone. We've always lived in communities. We've always had
yeah.
communal efforts, and so that's why I try to get away from and not really talk about self-sufficiency because it's not. We can't survive just on our own. It's a lot of work, and you have to know a lot of skills. You have to know how to be a carpenter and a welder and a grower and a forager and a hunter and all these different things. And we can exist in a different way. We can start to get our communities together and we can start to say to our communities, hey, like we can work together to create our food. We can work together
Yeah,
to
as
help each
cliche as
other
it
out.
sounds, there's no I in T.
Exactly. And it's like, we like to do a lot of things ourselves, but there's a lot of limitations to that. And so I feel like trying to portray this type of lifestyle and more of a, hey, like, I'm not trying to be self-sufficient here. Like at the end of the day, like we get pizza every now and again. We go to the store and get stuff. We don't just live off the
Yeah, man.
land.
I guess I got. Well, that's what I really wanted to really ask. Like, what's up when you're not teaching classes, when you're not tending to the garden? What do you guys like to do for fun? Do you have hobbies? Like outside of the myco nature world?
Yeah, so I'm a professional woodworker. So I use mostly hand tools, and I create woodwork like furniture. Like I just made over Christmas, I just made a
Nice. That's sick,
large
dude.
cherry cabinet with a glass front and some lights inlaid into it. But I've also made butcher block tables and apothecary cabinets and different things. And I love working with wood. Wood taught me a lot of lessons about how trees work and how trees grow. And I started out carving spoons, and sometimes I still do carve, but it's hard on your hands, so I don't carve too much anymore. But
Dude, I've carved a couple spoons as well,
it's
and
fun.
I tried to do like a pipe.
Yeah, it's funny. Don't tell my mom this, but when I was in high school, that was like the first woodworking project I did. I was up in my room trying to make a little pipe for myself out of wood. She was like, "What are you doing?" I brought the drill upstairs. all this stuff upstairs, trying to make this little Sherlock. So it's fun.
That's
It's good
awesome.
stuff. My girlfriend's an artist, and she's actually about to start a back to nature nature-based daycare in her backyard. So that's gonna be really fun for her. She's also an artist. She does a lot of the artwork. She made the logo for my business, and she makes all my promotional posters and things. So
The
we try
nature
to do it.
based daycare. That's a cool idea. There's a lot of people out there who are definitely about their land, right? So it's like I can totally see that taking off. Just as far
Yeah,
as
just
just the
getting
vibes
kids
that
getting
come
kids
with it.
out of the structured school environment that's basically just made to teach them to be worker drones, and taking them
Do
out
you
into
have
nature.
children yourself? As
We do not currently. To in the near future, but yeah, currently we don't have any kids, so we're kind of just working on ourselves and our businesses, and we both are trying to start our own business, and so we're hoping that we can get that stuff kind of set up and rolling, and then we can start to worry about family and stuff like that. But we do want to. I want to have a few little workers to help me out here.
gosh, I mean, you can't be doing all the work for the rest of your life. That's too much.
Oh yeah, I don't view it a lot of times as work. It's stuff that I like to do, and it's fun and it's active, and I'm like really like creative kind of madman, and if I get an idea, like I will literally spend 2 weeks doing nothing but that. Last year, I tried to do a ram pump. So we have a creek, and a ram pump um, it exploits a principle of nature that usually destroys pipes, but it exploits it in such a way that it actually pumps water uphill without electricity. So just by using gravity, it can pump water uphill. And so I was trying to make a ram pump for our
That's
creek
cool.
to pump it up our creek and up into our duck pond
Is
that
it
I
like
made
a
last year.
siphon, basically?
So there's a principle called a water hammer. And so when water is flowing at a high rate into a pipe, it can do something where it like kind of backs itself up, and it kind of has this motion like this, where it just kind of it keeps hammering, and normally a pipe under that pressure would just explode. But if you put a little, basically it's like a valve on it. I can't remember what the valve's called, a float valve or something, or check valve is what it's called. You put a valve on it. What happens is that when that water hammering's happening, it is blowing out a little bit of water out of that check valve to release the pressure, but every time it does that, it moves a little gulp of water up this pipe. Every time it does that, so you waste a lot of water and back into the creek. But
So
like
it's
it
like
also,
putting.
yeah, it basically moves water a gulp at a time, and so it's not like a hose where it's just flowing out,
That's
but you
hilarious.
can move water uphill without electricity. So these are the things I'm interested in. I love physics, I love engineering, and I just love making like weird shit, basically.
Is that would that be a slow process when you're doing that, or is that is like in a fairly quick process with the ram pump
It's
as
kind
far
of
as
more of a
moving water?
it's a slower process, but at the end of the day, like you're not having to use electricity or anything like that, so it's not going to be your traditional like
Yeah,
hose, but it could provide some. For me, it was going to provide a huge service because it's something that could run, all the time without electricity, and it could keep our duck pond full. So I'm going to revisit that this year. Sometimes you work on something for so long that you have to step away from it. I almost had it working, but I just could not spend any more money on it, and I just did not want to keep. My mind was
yeah,
melted.
just getting burnt out sometimes. Except it's always good to just take a step back sometimes and then come back refreshed on
For sure.
projects.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Winter time is my time for those
You
projects,
know,
and then all summer I'm out in the woods.
Yeah, man. Do you as far as like your wintertime projects, have do you do any like indoor cultivation of mushrooms at all?
I want to move greenhouse all up and running and everything. That's going to be a nice place for it because the carbon exchange between the plants and the mushrooms is really good. So I do have a mushroom
Yeah,
log in the greenhouse right now. So last year I did shiitake logs and they're outside, but
nice.
I'm trying to force fruit one inside. But I think once I kind of have some other things out of the way, I think I'm going to start trying to sterilize some substrate and get some spores and try to grow some different types of mushrooms, some culinary, some.
Hey man, you never know. I think that'd be a cool. It's like that'd be a cool thing, even just to like you get some like culture of like whatever, some gourmet, some oysters or something, and then if you have a bunch of hardwood logs out there, just do like four like a Lincoln log stack of like logs. Just drill a bunch of holes in it, put a bunch of plugs in there, and then you have like a bunch of logs that are just colonizing mycelium that potentially may fruit. You have
Oh, for
like
sure.
a
I have
plethora
some.
of mushrooms. Just
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I have some. I have some oak logs in the back right now that I'm about to inoculate. I might do a workshop with it. I'm not sure yet. Sometimes I just want to do things for myself too, so I might just inoculate all the logs with shiitake and call it a day, But it's fun. I teach
yeah.
people how to make maple syrup, and I teach people how to process acorns into flour and eat that flour.
Oh, dude, you know how to make maple syrup? What?
Yeah, we make it. We
That is so cool.
we didn't make very much this year because the weather has been really weird and our trees weren't really running that well. But we make black walnut syrup and we make maple syrup every year, and usually I have maple camp where I invite people around and I teach people how to do it and tell stories about maple syrup and let them eat maple syrup and maple candy and just know that you can do this in the city, that you don't just have to be on some northern Vermont, acreage. You can do this in the city if you've got two maple trees, or even a black walnut tree that we have up here. So I do that. I do the acorn
Really? Is
processing.
that's all it really takes?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to make much, but you can make a couple quarts of it just from a couple trees, if you have a good run and stuff like that. So it is attainable. Now,
I
are you
mean, a
going
couple of quarts
to?
is a lot of maple syrup.
Oh yeah, it takes a lot of sap for sure. It takes 40 gallons to make 1 gallon. But a gallon of maple syrup's a lot of maple syrup. So unless you're trying to start a business for yourself, maybe a half gallon is good for the year, or maybe a couple quarts is good for the year. It depends. I think this year we're gonna get bees though. Hopefully, if I have time.
Really, dude? Have you ever thought about? Have you ever seen the flow hive?
I have seen that. But we actually inherited some bee boxes from Sarah's grandpa, so we're probably going to use those. That flow hive is not cheap. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of a cheap guy. I like to do things on the cheap
Yeah, I
because,
know. I think it's like a 3 or 4 grand or something like that.
yeah, it's crazy, man. Um, anytime people make a market for anything, and that's the good and the bad about capitalism. Sometimes it makes our life easier, and sometimes it makes our life much more expensive. Um, and so, yeah, I just try to find frugal and cheap
Yeah, I
ways
guess
to
it
do
depends on
stuff.
who's getting it and who's using it and how, like, how you're using it. I,
Oh, for sure.
I always saw it was like it just seemed like it'd be like the efficient. It would be super efficient to be able to just like turn the handle, right? But then obviously you have to pay for that. But it's cool, dude. Like even like just having bee boxes. That's been a life goal of mine. I'd love to beekeep. I think it's so cool. Bees are so important for the environment, and they just like supply us with like this delicious little throw up.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, we we're trying to just be careful. Time is limited, and the more stuff you add. Last year we added ducks. This year we're trying to add bees. My girlfriend wants rabbits, and I'm still not really. I still don't really want rabbits. We have enough prey animals that we're trying to protect constantly. So, and it makes it tough to go away on
Yeah,
vacation.
you'd have to get
You got to.
like Tibetan hounds or something to like guard the farm.
Oh yeah, yeah. We need something because It's tough sometimes. It's tough when you have this kind of lifestyle to like go away on vacation and stuff. So you have to find somebody that knows how to feed chickens and knows how to take care of ducks and stuff while you're gone. So we're just trying to be careful about it so we can still
Is there
have
a
a life.
good local community that you know you can rely, like some friends you can rely on for
Oh
that
yeah,
around
we do
there, or
have
is it
that.
pretty much you guys?
No, we do have a community
Nice.
of people that can help us and have helped us, and we're really grateful for that. You know, it's really tough around the holidays though, because everybody's celebrating the holidays, and my girlfriend's family is in Indiana, so sometimes it's a little bit tough to get people to watch it. So I think we're gonna try and build a bigger coop that we can kind of lock them in for 3 or 4 days with food and water instead of having to let them out every day and stuff. So it's a work in progress, but that's the fun of it. The fun is in the journey, not the destination.
Absolutely, man. It's like just enjoy the process, and then, um, you'll once the fruits come, they'll be that much better. I know. So you have your Instagram. That's Spicebush Woodcraft. Do you have any other websites that people could find you at, or like Patreon links or anything?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram, Spicebush Woodcraft, where I have all kinds of short form educational videos. I just started a YouTube channel, so I'm a little bit late to the game on that, but I have a couple videos uploaded on there, and I got some more I'm working on. So I'm gonna have a big presence on YouTube before too long. I just I have so many ideas and so many things I want to talk about. Instagram kind of makes it tough to talk about higher concepts because it's all short form, 1 minute, blah, 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 blah. I also have my website, www.spicebushwoodcraft.com. If you want to, you're local in the Ohio area, and you want to come take a class, that's where you can sign up for my class and learn more about me. I also have a couple woodworking things on there for sale. But yeah, I was going to start a Patreon, but honestly, it's just not for me. I don't really feel inspired by Patreon. There's something about putting all this information behind a paywall that just didn't really sit right with me. So I know it works for some people. YouTube is more by people, I feel like. So I think YouTube is going to be a brand new adventure for me. I bought a GoPro and I've been kind of trying to get that figured out. Video editing and publishing long form is a lot tougher than it seems. It's a lot easier to make little videos on Instagram than it is to, make longer videos. But, it's another journey to be explored, and I love teaching people and educating. And at the end of the day, it all helps me in my business to thrive so that I can keep doing this. I work with a lot of homeschool groups, I work with a lot of um, nature groups and kids and parents and the public and private. And I do, after each of my classes, I do a wild food lunch where I use as much wild food and food from my garden as possible. So we get back from our hike and then we eat all the stuff that we were just talking about. And I think that's so important because it brings everything full
That's what I'm
circle.
talking about right there.
Oh yeah, I've done maitake mushroom and chestnut spanakopita. I've done chanterelle mushroom tarts, chicken of the woods, barbecue chicken. I mean, I try to be creative and bring that like high class dining experience into the woods in an affordable way for everybody. So that, because rich people are the only people that deserve to eat good food. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone deserves to eat
No,
good food.
everybody deserves good food. I think everybody deserves to be full. Everybody deserves to have a full belly at night and with some good ass food. And they've made good food so hard to get nowadays. It almost feels like, and if it is, if it is accessible, it's really expensive. And
But
it's
how
like
curious
they're like forcing us to eat shitty food.
But how curious is it that the same things we can go out and forage for free in the woods are things that are on the tables of some of the most expensive restaurants in the country? Morel mushrooms, ramps,
Like
ferns.
morels.
Yeah, morels. Morels, you can just walk out in the woods and put the miles in and find a bunch of them. Or you can go to a Michelin star restaurant and pay $500 for a plate of them. So it's pretty curious to me how those
Yeah.
two,
Then they're
that
probably paying like $100 a pound for them or something like that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I used to sell mushrooms to restaurants back in the day, and I charged a pretty penny because they want them. So there was a market for them for sure.
No, I mean,
Um,
rightfully, I guess at that point, it it is what it is. Like there's the people are gonna buy them, um, and there's people out there who are probably gonna like forage them and sell them for cheap. So I mean, I guess at that point, if you're doing it in honor for selling it its actual value rather than just disrespecting it and selling it for dirt cheap. Not
oh, for
necessarily,
sure.
like some people don't understand like the true value behind this whole seasonal growth. And it's like it's so beautiful, and it's like the area specific and the conditions and all of the humidity, and if you really think deep down into like the whole entire condition of the environment that it's in, it's like it's like awesome. And then a lot of people just see that as like a cash grab, which kind of
Oh, for
sucks.
sure, man. That's why I stopped selling and I started teaching because, something just didn't feel, obviously, selling mushrooms is not a huge deal. Selling plants is a bit bigger of a deal. But, I feel like when you create a market for anything, um, you can't stop it. Once you started it, if you don't fill the order, someone else is going to fill the order.
Yeah,
And, maybe you are ethical and you harvest ramps the ethical way, but as soon as you dive out of the market, some guy with a shovel and a bucket is going to go out in the woods and grab those rants, and he's going to sell them probably at a maybe lower price than you do. And the market continues on, and next thing you know, people are over harvesting and trying to get that money. And so that's why I kind of stopped selling that stuff, and I started teaching people because I'm like, I could sell this to you, or I could just teach you how to find it. You know what I mean? And I think I feel better about teaching people how to find this stuff and teaching people how to cook it and preserve it instead of it being like up in this space where you have to pay to play, so to speak. You can go out to the woods and you can just do this
and
stuff.
I feel like the fact that like if you teach people where to find it, you're also teaching people who may be able to purchase that land for the full circle back to like turning it into developments or like mini malls, and then just transferring that small amount of knowledge may then now have, who know, a butterfly effect to somebody now purchasing that land to preserve that land rather than use it for commercial purposes.
Oh yeah, man. And I'm involved with university, Ohio State University, and I try to get in contact with people that have some pull and some power because if I can change their mind, then maybe that'll have that ripple effect that you're talking about. So, I try and teach as many different types of people and kinds of people as I can. I also help out landowners by going to their land and walking their land with them and showing them the value in their land and what they can do to eliminate invasive species and encourage native species. I talk about non-timber forest products and how they can make money from their land without cutting the trees down. A lot of the landowners hire me and they've had foresters out beforehand, and all the foresters care about, unfortunately, nothing against foresters, but like I have a problem with them because they only care about the value of trees. They don't care about the value of the land, and so I try to offer that other perspective that like, yeah, you can cut down these trees and make 10K or whatever, but you could make more money over time by keeping those trees and harvesting the things underneath those trees. And at the same time, I'm going to teach other people how to do this so that when you do want to sell this stuff, you have a customer base of people that are like, yeah, I want to buy some rams from your property, or I want to buy some whatever. And it's more of a communal system versus like, us selling them to major markets like Foraged Market and those places. I don't really like that place very much. The online foraging market. I got a lot of opinions about things. I don't need to tell them what to you.
I didn't even know there was an online foraging market to begin with. It's kind of as funny as it is. It's like I'm pretty much, I kind of like live in like my own little like feng straight bubble, and you know, and
Hey,
I
nothing wrong
don't
with
like
that.
I only see people from like who our interaction. There's a lot of people who have like a lot of opinions on a lot of everybody for like no apparent reason. So, I'm just trying to get to know whoever I want to get to know as a friend, just, you know, like that, and it's like, I can't even, I don't have time for any of like all that outside crap. Like, you know what I mean? All the energy that some people put into like other like people's freaking business is like they could be putting into actually growing who knows, growing a gosh darn tomato plant for all. I think that's
Oh yeah,
where it
man.
begins.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
man. A lot of people with a lot of opinions, and I've got my own opinions too, but I don't.
Same.
I try to come across as more of a as more level with people, and try to understand other people, where other people are coming from, and kind of um, try to see the good in people too.
Yeah,
So,
it's like everybody's gonna have their opinions, and I think like some people do things I don't necessarily agree with, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's incorrect. It's like, um, so it's like, you know, it's just like a personal opinion, and all we can do is just kind of keep living by our own personal views, I guess, at the end of the
well,
day,
you gotta
and
live.
not necessarily let other people bother
Oh yeah, man, you gotta live by
us.
your own moral compass, and we all know what's good and bad, and we if you feel bad about something, then maybe it's not the best, and I've changed my mind millions of times about millions of things, and I try to be open, and when new information about stuff comes out, just like the invasive thing, right? I was very like, we're going to war with these invasives, and I've kind of leveled out a little bit, and I would rather get this message out to more people than to alienate people by being like, you have to hate this plan or else like you're not good. And it's more like, hey, like, I want to try and come at it from a level perspective and be open about other people's opinions and stuff like that. So, it's a complicated life's complicated, man. Life is as complicated as the food web that's going on
Sure
all
enough,
around us.
man. I don't even know. I don't know. Like nobody. I like, for at least from what I've learned is like nobody knows shit. None of us know what we're doing. We're just
Oh
like
yeah.
on this like, you know, doing. We're just on this place. We honestly, my parents had sex, and then they had me, and then now I have to pay bills. This is this.
Yeah.
This is where we're at in life.
Oh yeah.
You know.
A lot of times, man, no one taught us how to be like, at least like from where I'm from and stuff, my family was often in survival mode, and I grew up poor, and families divorced and all that kind of stuff. So I never really was taught how to be a man
Yeah.
or a
Same
human.
here, man.
I had to learn that stuff by myself, and I've had many great mentors over the years, and I think that mentorship and that kind of thing is missing in our environment
Who
right
are some of
now.
the mentors that you'd like to shout out?
So one of the first mentor I had, his name was Travis Hyde. He was one of my chefs, and who I worked under for a long time. And he was just a great man, a great dad, and a great husband, and a great chef. And he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot about, determination and, work ethic and these things that I had a little bit of trouble with coming out of the gate. And then my other mentor was Joseph Swain, and he was the owner of the mushroom farm I worked for, and he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot about gardening and how to be a grower and how to take care and build soil and how to grow mushrooms and really kind of re-sparked my love for foraging and mushrooms and wild plants and so yeah, I've had a couple of really good mentors, and I think that it's hard to see mentors when you're in the thick of it, but I think that if you can kind of hold strong and look back, you're like, wow, I learned a lot from that person, and that was a very valuable relationship for me. So hopefully, people out there can find a mentor of
Totally
their
agree with
own
that.
and see it for what it is. I've mentored a few people. A couple people have taken my mentorship and kind of turned it against me, but you know, such is life, and we
I
move
think,
on, and we.
such as, yeah, I've had that exact same thing happen as well, but and it's kind of cool. It's almost, it's cool to see that one that you are the mentor now, right? Like, thinking back, we've all had mentors. I've had a mentor myself. I've had multiple mentors, I'd say. But like, yeah, and it's like seeing all that like information just transfer down from like, now to you and what you're teaching people, me what I'm teaching people. And then now there's also like the newer age of mentors who are like some of the,
Yeah,
the
the
younger,
best
I
thing about
guess,
my
like people
mentorship
who are
is
getting
I'm
into
not
it
going to
now.
charge people for it. I feel like
Yeah.
there's too many
But I
coaches,
mean,
coaching
dude,
coaches out there.
um, dude, I wanted to say like, gosh, I I've had a blast talking to you.
Same here, man.
I definitely have to get to doing some like grains and substrate as well because that's still also my gig. I'd like to be able to do the podcast full time. Who knows one day? But gosh, I'd love to have you on again, man. And it was just like it was cool getting just getting to know you, bud. Like it was this, just a random. For those who don't know, this is our first time talking pretty much ever.
Oh yeah, yeah. And thanks to Drew, Uncle Fungus, for recommending me. He's a really good dude, and he's taught me a lot as well. And this is what we need. We need people lifting each other up in this community, and kind of you know. Just kind of trying to spread the information and get the information out there, because it's it's applicable to everybody. I mean, we are nature. I mean, we're a part of it, and the more people that are talking about it and trying to inspire each other and others, and that's what I do. I mean, I'm less about trying to tell you all these facts, and I'm more about inspiration and empowerment. I want to weave the facts in there, but I also want you to. I learn the best when I want to learn about something, not when someone's telling me about something. So I try to set the stage for someone to be so inspired by this that they go out on their own learning journey, and I try to give them as many resources. And I'm on open book on Instagram. People ask me questions all the time. I try my best to answer them and or point them in the direction of resources, because at the end of the day, if I was a rich man, I would do this for free. But unfortunately, you have to pay bills, so I have to charge for this. But
Also, like, guess with that being said, like, don't, you know, this whole era, there's this whole era of social media. Whereas like, now people have a following and people are influencers, right? And I could say that you're an influencer for what you're doing right now, and a lot of people are intimidated by that, and I feel like that's not something that people should be intimidated by. Like, understand that like we're all just humans at the end of the day, and most of us like are humans behind the Instagram accounts, and we're it's like we will answer your questions. It's not
for sure.
like it's not like this thing that you're making it into.
Right. Yeah, it's not
While
like no, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
yeah, no, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's like it's not it's not like this Fortune 500 company behind the account. It's just a person, and we will definitely answer. At least I'm speaking for myself and my following. The It's 100%. I'm always answering. Sometimes I even answer bots, and I'm like, God damn it! But
Oh yeah, I'm always I think what I offer in my classes is more of an experience as opposed to the information as well. But the information is always out there, which is why I started the YouTube channel, so I can make longer form educational content for people that can't come to my class or are not local, who maybe can't afford my class, things like that. Because no matter what, this information is going to be out there, and I want to just make sure I can spread it any way I can and spread the message and the good word of how amazing our landscapes are. Most people think Ohio is boring, but those people have never seen Ohio. for what it truly is, which is a paradise in my mind. Appalachia is an amazing place, and I really hope that I can represent the culture and the people and the plants and the animals and the humans that come from these places because, Appalachia has had a hard run, but, and it's a lot of stereotypes of people that come from those areas. But I can tell you that they're some of the probably the best people you'll ever meet, some of the hardest working and the most humble people out there. So, I hope to be able to be a good representation of that and a good steward of the land, no matter what following I have or whatever. Like, that shit doesn't really matter, to be honest with you, at the end of the day. Instagram's a game, and if you play the
Dude,
game by the
none of
rules
it
that you
matters, and
play,
I think that you're doing the damn thing, brother, as far as like showing the value of Appalachia. Just in the brief, time of looking at your profile, of seeing all of the things, and it wasn't even just necessarily the plants and the fungus, but that you were also showing the newts, and there was like some, like some of like the animals as well. So uh, you're showcasing your home in a very beautiful way, man, and you're definitely making it look fun and interesting, and it's just really cool to see, bud.
I hope so. So, thank you so much for having me on. I'd love to do it again sometime. If you're ever up in Ohio, I'd love to meet you in person too. So, that's what it's all about, trying to make these connections.
Yeah, man. Well, for sure, bud. I'm freaking a. I'll shoot you a message and we can even talk about it because I was thinking about possibly going up to Ohio sometime to even skydive because I skydive for fun. So there's this
You're a better man than I.
Cleveland skydiving
You're not
center.
gonna catch me up there, man. I'm scared of heights, man. I like my feet firmly
Dude, I'm
planted on the
still
ground.
scared of
I've got
heights
my
as well,
feet.
bro.
I've watched videos, man. That's just not something that I'm probably ever gonna. I'll watch people do it all day long, but I don't know. That's for me, man.
I
My hands
respect it.
clam
I
up as soon as
respect it.
we went to Montana a couple
That's
years
awesome,
ago.
man.
We did the Highline Trail at Glacier National Park, and man, that trail is like on the edge of a cliff most of the time, and I was just like moving about snail's pace. My girlfriend was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay, but like I'm not moving any faster than this."
Hey, I think that's fair. You're creating healthy boundaries is what it sounds like.
Oh yeah, yeah.
With,
We'll call it that.
on
Yeah,
that note, man, I can't wait to, also just see where your end of endeavors go in the future, and I can't wait to have you back on the podcast and to talk a little bit more about the gardening, the foraging, the classes, and everything else, bud.
yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Anytime, James. Well, you have a nice rest of your afternoon or evening at this point,
Yeah,
brother.
for sure, man. You too.
Thanks, man. All right, I'll catch you later. Peace.
Peace.